My father ended the 32-year War of the Roses, while the foundation for a strong, united England formed in 1486, when my parents married. My mother, Elizabeth of York, the daughter of King Edward IV and niece of King Richard III, was heir of the White Roses, and my father, the Red Rose, claimed his place in history when he defeated Richard III. That marked the beginning of our Tudor dynasty. The political union between the two roses also marked the beginning of a great love story. My handsome, intelligent father rescued my mother from her evil uncle who brutally killed her two young brothers. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Many said that my mother married my father to protect her family. If that was her intention, she may have been very disappointed, as my father also viewed her family as a threat to her crown. And one by one, he chopped their heads off. Although history viewed me as much more lenient to my York cousins, I continued the unfinished mowing, and then my son Edward took over that job. However, because of my kindness and mercy, there was one York descendant alive in the Tower of London when my daughter Mary Tudor took over the crown. Although my mother was not the main attraction when my father proposed, my father gradually fell in love with his wife. My mother was a wonderful wife and mother. She had 8 children with my father: Prince Arthur, myself, my 2 younger brothers who died as infants, and 4 princesses, although only 2 of them survived. Life was quite different for royal princes and princesses. The eldest son, like my brother Arthur, was viewed as a hope for the nation. He was educated to be the king and live in his own castle, while I was allowed to be close to my mother and sisters. But after Arthur's death at age 17, the hope for House of Tudor landed on my shoulders, even when I was only 12 years old. My older sister, the 15-year-old Princess Margaret, was betrothed to James IV of Scotland when the two countries signed the Treaty of Perpetual Peace. And years later, my younger sister, Mary Tudor, married the French King Louis XII, 30 years her senior. Princesses were political assets. They had no free will to marry the man of their choice. Although King James was famous for having 4 mistresses and 5 illegitimate children before their marriage, my parents couldn't resist the thought of their grandson sitting on the Scottish throne. So in 1503, Margaret became Queen of Scots. In 7 years, she had 4 sons and 2 daughters, although only King James V survived. Despite a 16-year difference, Margaret and James seemed to be quite happy. That is, until my brother-in-law decided to take sides with France and fight against me. He died in the Battle of Flodden in 1513, leaving my sister, his infant son, and a baby on the way. I don't know how Margaret felt when her brother killed her, but I have to give Margaret credit for working with the Scottish nobles and keep things in control. Being a young widow in a country fighting a war with her brother, she needed allies, and soon formed one with the powerful House of Douglas. In no time, she fell in love with Archibald Douglas, 6th Earl of Angus, leader of the House of Douglas. Like 2 foolish teenagers, they secretly married on August 6th, 1514. That stupid move cost her the title as regent, since the late king's will specifically made her regent till she remarried. She also lost custody of her 2 sons. After several months of holding out in Stirling Castle, she surrendered and left the prince to their uncle, the new regent of Scotland, Duke of Albany. Now, Margaret, pregnant with Angus's child, returned to Edinburgh. I told her to bring her 2 sons to England. They were my nephews, the only male heirs to Tudor dynasty, but Margaret refused. She was afraid that James would lose the Scottish crown. But then she was pregnant with Angus's child. She fled to England and had her baby daughter, Lady Margaret Douglas. But her joy of having a daughter soon turned to grief when she learned her infant son, Duke of Ross, just died. What kind of mother leaves her defenseless son to the hands of others, especially the one who is next in line to be King of Scots? However, I took care of both my sister and her newborn baby, and I even welcomed and formed a family relationship with my brother-in-law, Earl of Angus, who was really a terrible choice. He left his wife and daughter and returned back to Scotland when the Scottish Council threatened to confiscate his estate. When poor Margaret got approval to go back to Scotland, she found the husband she sacrificed everything for had been living off of her money with a lover. She was furious and sent me a letter in 1518 asking for my support on her divorce.
I am sore troubled with Lord of Angus since my last coming into Scotland, and every day more and more, so that we have not been together this half year. I am so minded that, and I may by law of God and to my honour, to part with him, for I wit well he loves me not.
My support? Are you kidding? How dare anyone in my family marry without my permission? Of course, at that time, I did not realize how useful divorce could be when trying to get rid of an unwanted spouse. I told her no, but she did it anyway. One thing most people did not know was how much Margaret and I were alike. Way before I cut my second wife's head off in 1536, she ordered the firing of a cannon at her husband, Lord of Angus, in 1525, who I sent back to Scotland so they could work out their marital problems. And when she fell madly in love with Henry Stuart, the terrible third husband of hers, she was so creative in her divorce petition, she even brought up the possibility that her first husband, King James V, may still be alive when she married Lord Angus, because they never found his body. If I were as good as her in divorce court, England may still be a Catholic country today. Actually, I was so upset with her, I protested against the shameless sentence sent from Rome. When her divorce was approved by the Pope, she was blindly in love, and soon she was pregnant again with the loser Henry Stuart. However, she soon realized that Lord Methven, whom she picked, desired other women and his wife's money only. You should have stayed a widow.
Look at you. You married 6 times. I only married 3.
But I am the king. And look at my wives. They're all beautiful. Look at your husbands. You have no taste. When her daughter with him, Dorothea Stuart, died in infancy, she realized her mistake and tried to file divorce again. Time and time again, she wrote to me and appealed for money and protection. Of course, I sent neither. When Margaret died in 1541, she had 2 husbands she hated and a daughter she had not seen in years. However, her granddaughter, Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, was born the following year. And her daughter, Margaret Douglas, gave birth to her first grandson, Henry Stuart, 4 years after Margaret's passing. 25 years later, Queen Mary Stuart married her cousin Henry Stuart. Although the union was disastrous, it united the two strongest claims to the English throne. 62 years after Margaret's death, her great-grandson James VI of Scotland became King of England after my daughter, Queen Elizabeth's death. Margaret, your blood has since run through every English royalty till today. I am Henry VIII, I am Henry VIII, I am.